From the bottom of Norma Desmond's swimming pool, it's the IGN Digigods. Now please welcome two very important chimps, Wade Major and Mark Kaiser.
Yes, that's got to be one of my favorite references of all time, Sunset Boulevard. Corey, who sent that in?
That was brought to you by Lance Taylor. Lance Taylor for all your tailoring needs. And lancing needs.
Thanks, Lance Taylor, longtime listener. Very funny. Great, fantabulous Sunset Boulevard reference. Chimp, indeed. And
wait, I'm busting out right now.
The brand new MacBook Pro.
Yep, just bought it.
You like it?
I haven't really busted into it truly yet because I am...
Oh! There it is.
What?
It's obsolete.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently taking all the files off my old one and putting it onto this one. So I'm still using my old one while I configure this one. And then once I'm done with the old one, I'll wipe it out and then sell it on eBay.
You do realize there's a way of going just... And make
well, no. Okay, this is boring. But here's the thing. I have an appointment with the Apple Store, Genius Bar, tomorrow.
Yes.
Because iTunes, here's the situation. I have all of my songs
right
on an external drive.
Okay.
Now, I'm under the impression that if I have a fresh, brand new, never before used Virgin iTunes, I need to do something special in order to get all of the songs from the external hard drive onto the iTunes. Like, I don't want I'm explaining this poorly. I don't want the actual songs on the laptop. I want the actual physical songs to remain on the external hard drive.
Right.
All I want on the MacBook Pro is the library, just a list of songs. And I'm under the impression that there's a way to do that I will invariably screw up that makes me want to go to the Genius Bar and have them do it in 5 seconds.
I don't know why you'd even want to do that, but fine.
Wait, what does that mean? What would you do?
I would put the songs on the laptop.
Why? I have all my songs back. Well, here's the thing. I have all my photos on the laptop because I access my photos a lot.
Okay, whatever.
But the songs I don't access a lot because the songs are on my iPod. We have all sorts of stupid songs anyway, like weird French pop music crap.
At this point, we really should pay tribute to Robin Williams because last week was a real bummer, I think, for everybody who at any point where if he was an icon, a television icon, a movie icon to you at any point in his career, and I realize for a lot of people, he's Teddy Roosevelt in the Night at the Museum movies.
That's very sad.
I realize that, and for some of us, he's Mork. He was discovered by Fonzie, and
to me, he's just a guy who was always there.
He was just always
there. He was part of our sitcom movie-going lives since the 70s, and also stand-up comedy lives.
Stand-up comedy, amazing shows. All that stuff he did with Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal with what was it called? Their comedy aid. What was it called?
Yes,
that whole thing. But I mean, ultimately, really, he became a movie icon in the 1980s. And he had that incredible run in the 80s and the 90s of just one after another mega hit. And they were like amazing performances. I mean, Good Morning Vietnam and
Mrs. Doubtfire, and Good Will Hunting,
and Dead Poets Society. And starting with Moscow on the Hudson and that whole period. I mean, just amazing stuff.
Well, he had also this late period dramatic run with like 1 Hour Photo and World's Greatest Dad.
1 Hour Photo was great.
So I like World's Greatest Dad too, Bobcat Goldthwait.
Yeah.
But he had a very interesting career that sort of entered and exited these different phases. And you get that with comics because comics start out wanting to be Mrs. Doubtfire, and then when you realize that most comics are very dark, depressive people, they want to do stuff like 1 Hour Photo and World's Greatest Dad.
Yeah.
And it just you look at a guy like that and you realize that the reason why he was so manic, and to me, the reason why he was so manic and the reason why he was a gamer, he was a big video game guy, is that pretty much he needed constant stimulation so he can outrun his demons.
Yeah.
And eventually his demons caught up with him.
Apparently he and Tom Hanks were big on gaming together.
Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of first-person shooter, got you, Hanks. Oh, damn you, Williams. Anyway.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that they're sitting at home in their underwear, like playing World of Warcraft, That is just bizarre.
It's fairly amusing.
But he leaves behind an amazing legacy.
So it's a horrible loss. It's had me just bummed for the whole week. And you realize, money and success and fame, all of those things, they don't fill the empty spaces when there are emotional problems and life problems. Everyone's fighting a battle. They are.
But his death, I have to say, seems to me more of a bummer than other recent celebrity deaths. There's something about him. Maybe because he seemed so childlike, or he was around so long, he seemed so beloved.
Because he was around so, and I'll tell you what it was. Because it was sort of because there was no private Robin Williams. He invited everybody in. Everyone else has their private life and their public life. And Robin Williams, it just felt like he was always talking about himself, his problems, his issues. And when he went onto a talk show or when he went into an interview, it was just, he was 100%. He was on, he was performing, but there was something that invited everyone into his experience whenever he was doing something. And I think as a result, everyone felt close to him. I think we all felt close to him on some level.
That's true, and nobody had anything bad to say about him.
No.
Even while he was alive, maybe you thought his manic comedy was not your taste, but nobody ever said, "Boy, was he a jerk when he went to visit the Tonight Show." Boy, I ran into him in a restaurant. He was a jerk. You never heard that.
Did you read the Harvey Weinstein story about the practical joke that he played on Stellan Skarsgård on the set of Good Will Hunting?
Yes, I did.
Wasn't that funny?
That is funny. And Norm Macdonald had an amazing Twitter run, where through Twitter he recounted how Robin Williams was booked on Letterman. The same night as Norm Macdonald was booked his first night on Letterman.
Yeah.
So it was Robin Williams as the lead guest, and then Norm Macdonald, in his very first appearance on Letterman, was also booked on the same show. And Norm was very, very nervous. And you should read it on Twitter if you haven't already. Norm Macdonald, in 140 character chunks, recounts what it was like to be a nervous young comic going on after an icon like Robin Williams on Letterman, and how Robin Williams just made him feel so comfortable and wonderful and wanted him to succeed. And it's just an amazing story, which you should check out on Twitter.
Yeah, it's great. I still remember so many of his guest spots on talk shows because they never went as planned. And you know this better than anybody else, having worked on talk shows, but there is nothing very spontaneous when a guest goes on a show. You've been pre-interviewed and you've worked things out with the host, and there are certain things that are going, like when a stand-up is a guest on Jay Leno or Jimmy Fallon or whoever, that dialogue that goes on is rehearsed. It's completely planned. The host is feeding them the lines that they need to have fed so they can do basically a mini routine. Robin Williams never did that. He went so far off the reservation so many times, and I remember watching him on Carson once, and Johnny was inconsolable. He was inconsolable. He was laughing so hard because Robin was so unhinged. And it all began because this was back in the day before people wore their wireless mics on their belt into when they had the boom mic that was kind of hanging over you.
Sure.
And it's off camera, but Robin just started pretending like he was Flipper, and the boom mic was some kind of a sardine that was being held over him, and he went into this manic thing, and it was hysterical. And the camera pulls back, and you see the boom mic, and you see the boom guy cracking up, and you see Johnny losing it. It was great.
Well, as a person, as you say, who used to make his living producing celebrity interviews on talk shows, there are certain guests where you're worried because you got nothing out of the pre-interview and they're not a good guest, but you gotta hope it happens.
Yeah.
Then there's, on the other end of the spectrum, there's guests like Robin Williams where it's going to be funny. Whatever happens, that what I can put together the worst segment. I don't know if Robin pre-interviewed or not, but it didn't even matter. You knew that if Robin was coming on your talk show, it was going to be great.
Yeah.
You didn't have to worry that it wasn't going to be funny. You didn't have to worry he didn't have 3 stories. And a plug. You didn't have to worry he wouldn't have energy. He's one of those guests where you just knew he was going to deliver.
Yeah.
And it was a great solace for talk show segment producers the world over, as well as the host.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do with Robin Williams is just keep up with him. As the host, you just have to keep up with him. So it's great. So it's he'll be sorely missed. But again, he has an amazing legacy of work that you guys can enjoy on Blu-ray and DVD.
I think it's unfair to recommend just one Robin Williams film. So. What would you recommend for people who feel like they want to pay tribute to him, get to know him better, do justice to his filmography?
I was going to try to maybe recommend something that maybe might be a little bit off the beaten path. So I was, first of all, he's in Deconstructing Harry, the Woody Allen film.
True.
So that's good. I think, and I have a feeling you're going to say this, Death to Smoochie. Right?
Yeah.
You love Death to Smoochie?
Oh, I love that film.
That's funny.
I love that film so much.
I also love Insomnia, which is a very,
Yeah.
also if you want quintessential Robin Williams, you can also do The Birdcage.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in there.
I would say Death to Smoochie and The Birdcage probably made me laugh more and harder than anything else he's ever done. And partly because he has such a great supporting cast in both of them. I mean, Hank Azaria and so many people are just so great in those two movies. But for me, it really comes down to Dead Poets Society and Good Morning Vietnam.
That's true. Or Fisher King.
Fisher King too. But Good Morning Vietnam and Dead Poets Society, for me, that's where you see him at his level best in every conceivable way, and especially Good Morning Vietnam, because they really did just let him go on all of that radio stuff. He went nuts. And he got to be manic, but he also got to play really dramatic. And all of the dramatic stuff with the kid and with the girl and everything else in that movie is so heartrending. And I probably quote that movie. I quote one line of his more often than I think any other line from that movie. And it's a line that he delivers to Forrest Whitaker.
Good Morning Vietnam.
No, it's when Forrest Whitaker, you remember his little bit of business in the movie, right? When the Jeep is already running, but he still turns the ignition, and he always grinds the ignition.
Right.
And at the very end of the movie, Robin, when he does it again, driving him away, Robin Williams says, staggers the imagination.
You want to know
and Forrest Whitaker says, makes me unique though, sir, doesn't it? And it's great. And I say that all the time. Whenever there's just something incredulous that I can't process, I just always say it staggers the imagination.
Well, in that case, Robin Williams' death definitely staggers the imagination.
It does.
But you know what? The last thing I'll say about Robin Williams is that the one film that, when I was a little tyke, I really loved, which has not been part of the Robin Williams filmography conversation now that he's died, is World According to Garp.
True.
No one's really talked about the World According to Garp.
And
that's a terrific film.
That was the first big thing that he did.
It was George Roy Hill.
It was George Roy Hill. It was John Lithgow before anybody really knew who John Lithgow was in an Oscar-nominated performance. That was a hell of a movie.
Yeah.
And
that's a good rental. So obviously that might be one that slipped through the cracks a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you have Netflix, you may want to check out The World According to Garp and many others. So Robin Williams obviously will be sorely missed, not only just him as a person, but also his place within the Hollywood firmament in terms of being able to be a comic, being able to be a serious actor, being able to be, a great talk show guest. There's a hole now in that.
There is.
There really, maybe Jack Black, maybe? I don't know. There's really nobody like him.
It's nobody. There isn't anybody. There's no one out there who does. There was never anyone before who did what he did.
Right.
He was the only one. So before we launch into the Blu-rays and the DVDs, I want to give a quick shout out to, we're going to be talking about some Twilight Time titles this week. The amazing Twilight Time titles that are always limited release all have isolated scores on them, and they are available at screenarchives.com. And screenarchives.com is also the home of the limited release soundtracks on CD from La La Land. And there's a bunch of great La La Land stuff out this week that I should mention as well. Music from the motion pictures The Naked Gun Trilogy by Ira Newborn. That's a really cool 3-disc box set, if you like the music from the Naked Gun films. Mark Snow's original score from The X-Files, Fight the Future, which is a really underrated score. The In-Laws, the original In-Laws, which our good friend Richie's dad is very funny in as the...
Serpentine.
Yes.
Speaking of which, speaking of the In-Laws, not to interrupt you, which I am.
Yeah.
I watched. It took me a while to get around to watching all of it, all of this new Blu-ray version. But I watched Wings of Desire.
Oh.
Peter. Speaking of Peter Falk.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that I hadn't seen it from beginning to end in a long time. And obviously, it's a magical film. It's one of the best shot films I've ever seen. But I have to say that the only thing about the movie that struck me in this otherwise magical film that is one of the most beautifully shot films I've ever seen is that as the angels are floating around Berlin, listening to everybody's thoughts. Not everybody has like deep thoughts about time and existence. I mean, like literally, like some woman in a laundromat
In a
is
Wim
having
Wenders
thoughts
film, they
about
do.
time and existence. I'm like, you know what? That's not that realistic. But I'm just being a little bit. I'm just
They
being
do
a little.
in Wim
I'm
Wenders
being
films.
cheeky. Obviously, it's an amazing film.
Now, by the way, the cinematographer for that film, Henri Alacan, you know his whole story, right?
He shot a bunch of.
He died about a little over a decade ago at like 93 years old or something like that. But he shot stuff like La Bataille du Rail in 1946, okay? Anna Karenina in 1948. I mean, he shot like he was a big deal starting in the 30s. He started shooting his movies in the 30s. He shot Roman Holiday.
Wow.
Okay, the guy who shot Roman Holiday shot Wings of Desire. So just want you to understand that he is like an old school legend. He was an old dude when they shot Wings of Desire.
Oh, it's so gorgeous, unbelievably
and
gorgeous.
All of those effects, all the fade-ins and the disappearing angels and the wings appearing and all that stuff. In camera.
Right.
All of that was done in camera. No opticals.
They actually, I noticed this. They actually, the French acrobat, right, who he falls in love with, she plays for a circus called that's named after him.
Yeah.
It's called the Circus Ala. What's his name?
Alacan.
It's named the Circus.
He was almost 80 years old when he shot that.
That's
Wings of Desire.
gorgeous.
Amazing. So anyway, it was Wim Wenders himself who told that story when I did a little Q&A with him at the Cinematheque.
Don't name drop. I'm just
sorry.
saying. I'm just trying to say a nice thing about a nice movie,
I know.
and you're name dropping.
Yep, sure am. Anyway, also among these new CDs, anyway, John Morris's score for The In-Laws. That's how we got off on this tangent. John Morris, of course, did all the Mel Brooks stuff. Amazing composer. Elephant Man and many other great scores. Amnesty International released the Human Rights Concerts, 86 to 98. Has a lot of great performances. The Addams Family by Mark Shaman, which is not bad. I'm not a Mark Shaman fan, but it's all right. Marvin Hamlish's score, little-known score in a limited edition release for that movie, Daryl. You remember Daryl?
Oh, was that like a robot?
The acronym, yeah.
A robot or something?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I haven't thought about that movie in years.
Yeah.
You know what? I remember liking that film when I was a kid.
Get the microphone closer.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, why? Now we.
Holy blimmins.
There we go. That's better.
Oh, are we going now?
No, we're fine.
Don't stop the recording.
I'm not.
Okay. I remember liking
lost
Daryl.
Your mic for a moment.
I remember liking Daryl as a kid, from what little I remember about it.
Yeah.
But I bet if we saw Daryl today, it'd be dreadful.
It's terrible.
I'm sure it's dreadful.
It's dreadful. And then the last one I want to make a big shout out for limited edition release on CD of Altered States, the Oscar-nominated score from John Carigliano, and that is a heck of a score.
Oh yeah, he was an interesting composer. He did a lot of avant-garde stuff.
Really, really interesting. I mean, and still, I would say this is maybe the best Ken Russell movie ever made.
Oddly enough,
thank you, Patty Chayefsky, for wrestling this director into shape.
Well, it's funny because it's almost ironic or kind of comical that Altered States is the most coherent, film that director ever made, and he's made some crazy films. Ken Russell's made some crazy films. Altered States is one of the most coherent, and yet that film is not really that coherent.
I love it though. I really
it's
do.
great. You kidding me? It's great.
Yeah.
Is that on Blu-ray? Do I have that on Blu-ray?
Altered States?
Is that on Blu-ray?
I believe it is. This is how. Hold on. Something tells me we've talked about Altered States on Blu-ray. Hang on. Yes, it came out on Blu-ray 2 years ago. Warner released it 2 years ago.
Wade, well, here's the thing.
That was, in fact, it came out in July of 2012, and I must have been merciless in writing them to get it to us because we covered it in December of that year, like 5 months later.
Now,
anyway.
Here's the thing. I know we haven't talked about Blu-rays yet, and we will.
We're going to kick butt here in a moment.
But I want to bring up the Criterion November titles.
Yes.
Which they just announced.
And we'll talk about a couple of Criterions as soon as you're done with that.
Wade, I don't know what it is with Criterion. I don't know why Criterion would want to release Tootsie.
I do,
but thank God they are. It just seems like a very un-Criterion film, but I am so unbelievably beyond happy.
I saw that and I just thought, thank God. I mean, and you remember at the time, I remember thinking, well, Tootsie's a really good movie because that was a good year. That was the year of E.T. and Gandhi and E.T. and Gandhi and Das Boot and The Verdict. I mean, all that was the same.
Yes.
What a great year that was. We look back on it, it's like, my gosh, what if we had a year like that again?
Studio films. Those
were all studio films. Can you imagine if the studios made a slate like that? I mean, Das Boot wasn't, obviously, but can you imagine if the studios made a slate this on any year now that included The Verdict, E.T., Tootsie, Gandhi? Holy cow!
All those movies, especially they'd all be festival pickups or just that kind of stuff. The studios wouldn't make them.
I mean, Melvin and Howard was that year as well. Jonathan Demme, that was like a minor film that year.
Amazing.
It's
well,
just,
Melvin and Howard would definitely be like a festival film.
Yeah.
So anyway, Tootsie coming out, the new 4K digital restoration, a making of, interview with Dorothy Michaels by the old critic Gene Shalit.
Best.
Too damn funny. Audio commentary featuring Sidney Pollack, which was taken from the Criterion's Laserdisc.
Yep.
Now, we also have It Happened One Night, which is also surprising and amazing.
Yep.
It Happened One Night. Frank Capra, Clark Gable, Claudette Colbert, one of the great, early sound comedies.
Yep.
And it's great. I mean, I just cannot wait for It Happened One Night. I cannot wait for Tootsie. Of course, there's also
it's the best.
La Ventura also.
Yeah, which is
very excited
amazing.
about. So there's really good. Criterion is just really stepping it up. It's just amazing. Oh, I love it. Now, also, the one thing we should probably talk about, which was, it's a couple of days old, but what do you think of this whole, and this is mentioned on the Facebook page too, what do you think of this whole Edge of Tomorrow Blu-ray situation where they basically changed the title? Now, it's not like it's moderately unprecedented, but not really unprecedented.
So, to fill people in who aren't on the Facebook page or whatever, the Edge of Tomorrow has now become, they've now adopted the tagline as the new title of the movie, which is
Live, Die, Repeat.
Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, which is stupid. No, this is look. This has been done many, many times before, and foreign films have done it, and domestic films have done it, and it's certainly nothing new. It's just new for a Tom Cruise tentpole film in the summertime. That's the only thing it's new for. But if a movie doesn't perform in theaters, they will try to find a way of beefing up the title in theatrical release.
Yeah. So now it's
in home release. So.
Now it's called Live, Die, Repeat.
Whatever. That's fine. It's the same movie.
It is the same movie.
It's the same movie. So a couple of criterions this week. Foreign language films. Fantastic. Both of them among the last Blu-ray DVD dual format editions. So go get them while you can. One is Pedro Almodovar's Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, which is a wonderful film. Was controversial at the time. I don't really understand why. I guess because it kind of, it was the sort of S&M-ish angle on it, a person who's abducted winds up sort of liking it. I don't know. But Victoria Abril is wonderful in it. Antonio Banderas really is the kind of the psycho of the piece. This is the film that made him. I mean, this is when people discovered Antonio Banderas and he started getting Hollywood offers. It's a great film. It's beautifully shot, and it comes with gobs and gobs and gobs of interviews and videos, tidbits like a conversation from 2003 between Banderas and Pedro Almodovar, premiere party footage in Madrid. I mean, it's just loaded with tons of great stuff. And my favorite of all of them is actually in the booklet, which has a conversation between Ken Jones and Wes Anderson, which is pretty great. Wes Anderson's always fun in interviews. So anyway, this is from a 2K digital
great.
Restoration. And then there's also
2K, which is a bit disappointing.
It's sufficient. And then Alfonso Cuarón's Y Tu Mama Tambien, which is still wonderful, still absolutely fantastic. Great Lubetsky cinematography, as usual. Better film than Gravity, I have to say, from both of them.
Whoa.
Yeah, Gravity's fine, but,
well, okay, Gravity's a way different film than a coming-of-age thing.
But what great performances from Gael Garcia Bernal and Diego Luna.
What happened to Gael Garcia Bernal? Man, that guy just...
Yeah, he shows up in stuff now and again. But I mean, from both of them, they were just everyone in this is just right at the top of their talents, and this has just a gorgeous DTS audio track, and it's fantastic. There's an on-set documentary that they shot in 2001 here, a lot of deleted scenes, and a couple of new little featurettes with new interviews, and it's all great, really, really great. So Y Tu Mama Tambien is fantastic. Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down is fantastic. You should own both of them. Mark, shall we talk about some new movies?
We should. We can talk about the latest unnecessary stockholder-approved slab of spider product.
Oh gosh.
Called The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Unfortunate.
I have to say, you watch Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is just completely averagely average, and it really makes you wonder what Marvel Studios would have done with this character. And they're like never going to know.
Yeah.
Unless Sony farms it out to them at like some exorbitant cost.
Yeah, I know.
We'll just never know what a real Spider-Man film is going to be like, because this one, it's one of those films where there's nothing wrong with it. It seems unlike all the other Marvel Studio films that are completely mercenary and unnecessary, but are still a lot of fun and very well crafted. You get this, which just seems mercenary and unnecessary.
Well, Sony has to keep making Spider-Man movies, or else they lose the rights, and it reverts back to Disney. And if anybody is upset with the stuff that Sony is doing, let me issue this warning. Imagine what will happen to Spider-Man if the franchise reverts back to Disney and Marvel.
No, it'll be good.
Oh, no.
Really?
Yeah. What? Suddenly Spider-Man will be... No, I no, truly.
Okay, could it be any worse than these films?
Oh, yeah. You betcha.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Marvel has slam dunked every superhero film they've done.
But think about how good the previous one was.
Really?
Think about how good Mark Webb did a wonderful job. Do you think Marvel and Disney would ever have hired Mark Webb? That's not their kind of a hire.
But here's
that's a Sony hire.
Oh, meaning that they bring in the guy from 500 Days of Summer to accentuate But here's the thing, though, they didn't really accentuate the relationship that much. I mean, it's still a superhero movie.
True.
They didn't really get into the Peter Parker. He's a troubled
true.
teenager and blah blah blah. Any of that.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, Marvel's taken some chances with the directors that they've hired.
A few.
Look, Captain America 2, which I thought was absolutely terrific. It's a great entertainment. Captain America 2, directed by the guys who did You, Me, and Dupree.
I know.
Who would have thought that?
I wouldn't.
Now, I will agree with you in one sense, which is that I don't know that Marvel would hire somebody who can sell relationships on any realistic ground level way. True. They would want him to be somebody who can pretty much sell Kevin Feige, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
All Kevin cares about is like gigantic ships crashing into like other gigantic ships. That's all he cares about.
Yep.
He's not really a relationship guy, but still, I would love to know what a Marvel Studios Spider-Man film would look like. Although this Blu-ray is beautiful. It's a beautiful looking Blu-ray. All the electric bolts and whatnot coming out of Electro, played by Jamie Foxx, are all beautiful. There's a commentary, which is kind of enlightening. I mean, after a while, it's all about, we were acting in front of a green screen. It was really tough. I'm kind of enough of that. And then we have 4 deleted scenes, none of which were necessary for the final film. So there you go. Amazing Spider-Man 2. Look, if you got to have it, I guess you got to have it. It's a fine rental on a Saturday night if you must. But otherwise, I have to say, I feel like this is the crown jewel in Marvel's comic book canon, and we will never know how good it could be as a movie until someday, some way, Marvel does it.
Totally. I will.
You don't agree.
I don't agree. I think Marvel would screw it up, but eventually Marvel will take control of the franchise, I'm sure.
Really?
I'm sure at some point they will, maybe in 20 years. But until then, Sony's got a whole spider world that they're going to be exploiting soon.
Yeah, but what's funny is like, Marvel, did you ever think that we would grow up in a world where people would spend $1 billion for a gigantic crossover issue? I mean, that we're just seeing nothing but crossover issues that we grew up on at 90 cents a pop.
And it'll get old soon.
Well, no, look, but that's where Guardians of the Galaxy was a real test for them.
All right.
I mean, they were able to sell that, and it's a good film.
So, a couple from Ark, by the way.
Wade would rather talk about...
we got a lot to go through.
Home is where
Look at this. You got to get through this.
All right.
This right here. This is what it's all about.
All right, I'll be quiet.
We got to blow through this. So a couple from Ark really quickly that come with DVD and Voodoo digital copies.
Thank God.
VUDU. One is called Jessie, which is a pretty straight, although competent revenge thriller. The only twist is it's about a woman. Her brother her brother disappears, and he got in with the wrong crowd, and she's a cop with a drinking problem, and she got to grab her piece and go and unleash hell on the town. His name Jessie is the name of the movie. Jesse, stars Stephanie Finocchio. And
stars Pinocchio?
Stephanie Finocchio. And if you don't know who she is, doesn't matter. Everybody else in this is kind of playing the parts that they've always... get this. Eric Roberts. Armand Assante, and William Forsythe playing a mobster. Does that not scream B-movie to you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Eric Roberts alone would do that. Anyway, but you know what? It's perfectly serviceable. It doesn't transcend the genre, but it is what it is. It's fine. And then a tender little bit of mush. Not my kind of movie, but a lot of people like this family film called Home is Where the Heart Is.
Aww.
It's also a revenge thriller.
Lame.
No, obviously not. You know what elevates this thing? A couple of great performances. One from John C. McGinley, who I always like. Never much liked him on Scrubs. I always thought he was trying too hard, but he's a really good actor, and when he does stuff like this, he really gets to show that. And then Bailey Madison. You like Bailey Madison?
Ashley Madison? You mean the website?
Bailey Madison.
Who's that?
Bailey Madison. We all know him. He was one of the henchmen guys in the original Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's the guy. He's the guy that cuz. Remember that whole thing? This guy right there, Bailey Madison. He's a great actor.
Looks like Jonathan Banks.
He's a great actor. He's a terrific character actor. He's been around forever, and he's so good in this. He's really, really good, and I'm glad he's getting, finally at this point in his career, getting some bigger parts. Anyway, this is one of those kind of small-town Texas things. This actress goes back to her small town and gets to know the little sister that she left when, she was making her career big a long time later. I mean, it's kind of predictable in many respects, but it's really nice. It's a nice little slice of hometown, small-town Americana and people getting in touch with their roots, and it's very enjoyable.
Speaking of enjoyable, you guys got to check out Only Lovers Left Alive. Now, if you were really getting sick of the whole vampire thing, you really can't get sick of any genre if Jim Jarmusch is about to tackle it.
Totally true.
And what Jarmusch does here is very interesting because the film is pretty commercial for Jim Jarmusch. It's just sort of like a slight tweak on the whole vampire thing. Mm-hmm. It's a thin love story, but meant to be. It's really more about mood and attitude and the tweaking of the genre. But it's about these two, world-weary vampires played by Tilda Swinton. And every Tilda Swinton performance at this point, especially after Snowpiercer, every Tilda Swinton performance in I Am Love, and she is just way out there. I mean, she is no holds barred every time out, Tilda Swinton, and she's great. And Tom Hiddleston is also great. We all the kids love the Tom Hiddleston.
Sure, I can't get enough of Tom Hiddleston. I really can't.
No, he's cool.
He's just awesome.
So it's great. It's just a very interesting take on the whole vampire thing. It's they're very sensitive and they it's the thing with Jarmusch is that he's got this very laid back kind of vibe. So this is not. He's able to take the vampire genre and fit it into his aesthetic, as opposed to, being a guy for hire doing a vampire film, which is kind of what happened with Catherine Hardwicke with the original Twilight, in a sense. Even though, those two are kind of analogous. But anyway, this film is just terrific. It looks beautiful. It's a little long, but still, I thought it was great. It's a very interesting work from a very interesting director who really kind of could have used a bit of a hit because he was kind of sinking into like super indie land. So it's kind of nice that that he knocked it out of the park with this. It also co-stars Mia Wasikowska as Tilda Swinton's sister, and it's good stuff. And Anton Yelchin is in it too, who plays Chekhov in the Star Trek films.
Totally.
So could not recommend this enough. Only Lovers Left Alive.
So segueing from the vampire thing into much cheesier genre fare, Agency of Vengeance: Dark Rising is actually quite a hoot. This is from Level 33, and if you just like straight-up B-movies that are unafraid of admitting that they are B-movies, this is great. It's like a cross between Men in Black and Barbarella. Basically, the idea is that Michael Ironside runs this kind of Men in Black operation, and they think that some evil demon is going to usher in an apocalypse and destroy the Earth. So they basically get this big-chested woman with big guns and a bikini to be the secret agent who stops the whole thing. None of it really makes a lot of sense. The effects are very, very lowbrow, but somehow the whole thing is just silly enough to be thoroughly entertaining. So I kind of, the cover art, which shows her in her military bikini with, with like ammo belt and dog tags and holding this gigantic gun. This really says it all. Remember when movies like used to be sold on poster art like this, and then they had to go figure out what the story was?
Sure. Well, it's still
great.
around. It's called AFM.
Exactly. And then we've also got a little thing called I can't believe they're going there. Amber Alert: Terror on the Highway. This is with Tom Berenger, who used to have a career. Like all these movies, it's got a pistol on the cover. He will stop at nothing. Amber Alert, of course, is what makes our iPhones vibrate anytime someone abducts a child.
No, it doesn't just make it vibrate. It makes it scream.
Have you ever been in a public place when those Amber Alerts hit?
Oh, my God.
And you hear, like, I was in Costco once. I was walking on an aisle in Costco, and suddenly, I swear, I thought it was an alien invasion. It was, you just hear that sound, and you just go, what the... And you realize it's not just my iPhone. It's 350 iPhones all in Costco going off at the exact same time.
One of them happened. I remember one of them happened in the middle of the night a few months ago.
Unbelievable.
That thing will wake you up.
The once mediocre director George Mendeluk directed this, and you know what? It's a routine abduction chase movie, but Tom Berenger still has a few chops, and the whole idea of using the Amber Alert system not just as a way of promoting the title, but it actually has like a plot function. It's not bad. So I could be harsher on it, but I won't be because I know what kind of a film it is. And then, real quickly, Batman Assault on Arkham. This is a new DC Universe original animated movie. These are always surprisingly good, and the animation is always really, really sharp. And this is no different. I'm glad they're still doing these, and I kind of wish the people that do the feature films would take a cue from the people who write these, because they get it. And of course, this is the Riddler is the central villain in this case, and it's all really, really pretty sharp. So if you like these DC animated features, I recommend them. And then last on the genre front is The Quiet Ones, which is inspired by actual events, as are almost all these movies these days, which means they really take a lot of liberties. They've transplanted this from the original location. It's now it is no longer a Canadian incident, but still the story is basically the same, which is it's a professor in the late 60s, early 1970s, who's conducting these paranormal experiments where he doesn't believe in ghosts and possession. He thinks that there's a scientific reason why certain things happen, and he's trying to get to the scientific explanation. And a bunch of students, join him in his experiments. And of course, as we know, all hell breaks loose. He's trying to deal with this young woman who's just deeply, deeply disturbed, and one of the students starts to fall in love with her. Anyway, it's a good cast, though. Jared Harris as the crazy professor, Sam Claflin and Olivia Cooke rounding it out. It's on Blu-ray and digital HD, meaning ultraviolet, and not bad. I actually thought for one of these kind of heavily edited PG-13 studio deals, it was not so bad. So that's a Lionsgate release from the people at Hammer. It's one of the last Hammer horror films that actually maybe the first one that they've done that really looks like an old Hammer horror film. It really feels like a Hammer film. So I applaud them for that. Anyway, a lot of extras on here. Good commentary with John Pogue, who co-wrote and directed it, and Tobin Armbrust, who's the producer, and then a couple of featurettes and some outtakes.
Wade, you know what my problem is with the Muppets Most Wanted? It's not that it's a bad movie.
It was unnecessary.
Well, you know what it is? Look, the first film, which caught everybody by surprise, because it was terrific. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the Muppet movie and like all the celebrity cameos that were there, you got a feeling that all the celebrity cameos that were in the original Muppet movie, they were there because they loved the Muppets.
Sure.
With the Muppets Most Wanted, now all these celebrity cameos, it's like jumping on a bandwagon.
Right.
I mean, now that the Muppets are back, now we can do our cameo. Well, they didn't want to do a cameo when the Muppets were first coming back, and then maybe it wouldn't work out, so we want to do a cameo now.
Sure.
So, this thing is just a cameo a minute on Muppets Most Wanted, and it gets a little bit tiresome. This one, it does feel, the jokes feel a little bit off from the first one. The songs are not as catchy as the last one. It does have definitely a sense of that, vaudeville kind of let's put on a show fun to it, which I did like, but it feels like... I feel like this is what happens when it gets a little not complacent, but the inspiration was more with the first one than it was with any of the subsequent ones.
Sure.
So the kind of that creative spark feels a little bit off in this one, but still, look, Tina Fey and Ricky Gervais in a Muppet movie, I get it. I think that's great, and it was written and directed by the same guys who did the first one, Nicholas Stoller and James Bobbin. So I found this to be relatively amusing, but I was kind of hoping for more. In fact, kind of the Muppets are almost like straight puppets, straight puppets.
Sure.
To the actors, with Tina Fey camping up as a Russian whatever commander. But, So, I don't know what to say about the Muppets Most Wanted. I'll say it's a good rental. The first one you should own because it's terrific. It came out of nowhere. It was lots of fun. Love the songs. Funny stuff. Very self-effacing. This one's self-effacing too. There's in-jokes about how sequels are never as good as the original. But still, I do feel like it's a little bit off. The inspiration is not quite there. But still, it's a good rental. It looks good on Blu-ray. There's some decent extras, including a blooper reel. Yeah, so Muppets Most Wanted. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a letdown compared to the original.
I think it has no purpose to exist.
Well,
anyway.
what movies do have a purpose? Do you think Hateship Loveship has a purpose to exist?
Hateship Loveship. I'm so glad.
Wait, I'm leaving now because I'm going to go I'm going to get an iced tea. Would you like something to drink?
Water.
You want water?
Just water.
Can you talk about Hateship Loveship and
will.
other things while I get an iced tea and you get you water?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Guy Pearce for a moment, and Guy Pearce is in both of the next films I'm going to talk about. Hateship Loveship. Thank goodness for Guy Pearce. He's like the anchor in this film. Ostensibly, people are going to see this because Kristen Wiig does a lovely kind of tender, very nuanced, dramatic turn. But Guy Pearce just always brings an extra level to everything. And this is a really good cast. The Liza Johnson, who directed this, does a wonderful job with this screenplay by Mark Jude Poirier. And the story is very simple, is that Kristen Wiig is a housekeeper who comes into the life of this family, this very dysfunctional, injured family. Nick Nolte's this crusty old guy. Haley Steinfeld's his granddaughter. Guy Pearce is her dad. His wife and her mother died, in the past. It's all this tragedy and these buried emotions, and it's the usual formula that we get where you take a damaged family and you inject a new person into it, and of course that creates new alchemical interactions and relationships, and all the baggage gets left behind, new relationships are formed, yada yada, so forth and so on. We've seen that a million times. It's a fairly routine arrangement, but it's a lovely film, and it's lovely because all of the actors just bring an extra level to it, and Haley Steinfeld keeps getting better and better. Nick Nolte isn't called on to do a great deal in this film, but he's solid. Kristen Wiig, lovely. Guy Pearce is the total anchor, and I'm hoping that Liza Johnson gets a chance to do bigger and better things. On Blu-ray is a film I absolutely adore. Nobody else seems to adore it because it came and went, vanished almost instantly, and I find that rather sad. That's Breathe In. Did you see Breathe In, Mark?
I did not.
Here's the thing. Drake Doremus, who made Breathe In.
Drake's your anus?
Oh, you are not fun. Drake Doremus, who did this, kind of had a big deal with the Grand Jury Prize of 2011 for Like Crazy, which was the film
which
that
you loved.
I love.
I
Like
did not
Crazy.
love that movie.
I love that movie.
No, it's phony.
And
phony.
It introduced Felicity Jones, of course,
who's amazing.
Amazing in it, and is amazing in everything that she does. And this is their reteaming. It is not as good as Like Crazy, but by golly, it's awfully good. I mean, I just love the way he shoots films, and I love the way he stages scenes, and the quiet, and the way that actors kind of get to stew in their juices and don't have to talk all the time. And Guy Pearce is wonderful. Felicity Jones is fantastic. Amy Ryan is fantastic. This is almost a kind of a Lolita type deal. Guy Pearce and Amy Ryan are a married couple. They've got this teenage daughter, and they invite basically an exchange student played by Felicity Jones into their home. And but she is a musician. He's a music teacher. And there's suddenly some things stir between the exchange student and the dad. I know, people are going to be like, yeah, I've seen that before. But you know what? Like the last film, somehow, where Guy Pearce is involved, things don't feel stale. They don't feel familiar. It feels legit. It's just, there's a poetry to the way this film is put together. And Drake Doremus is great, and I hope somebody gives him a really big budget to do something really ambitious, because he's just got a great eye and a great way with actors.
Wade, Woody Allen has his most substantial film role in years in a movie that is otherwise
but not one that he directed.
Not one that he directed or wrote. This is Fading Gigolo. This is directed by John Turturro, who every once in a while takes on a directing project. Obviously, he's an actor, known for many Coen Brothers films, but
he won the Camera d'Or at Cannes once for his directing debut.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. So Woody Allen plays a gigolo. It's very exciting.
Nice.
So John Turturro needs money. And his friend, played by Woody Allen, convinces him to become a gigolo as a way to make money.
Peddle his manly wares.
Obviously, this movie would be nothing without Woody Allen, not because he gives a great performance, but because it is so odd to see Woody Allen in a film that he did not direct. So there is a certain amount of novelty there. I just wish that that it was funnier. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes when you hear Woody Allen, you're like, it's really only funny because Woody Allen is saying it. I think if you had given that role to somebody else, I don't know if it would be funny at all. But just the idea that Woody Allen is saying these lines just makes me laugh, because at this point, no matter what you think of his personal life, every Woody Allen appearance on film is a gift. Otherwise, this is a pretty lumbering comedy. It's whatever.
Well, so much. I'm not going to watch that one now.
Now, if Woody Allen did a audio commentary, that would be cool. But instead, we just get John Turturro.
All right, and I got one more new film here, and then then I'm going to go into do a little World War I tribute, and then we'll get into our.
What do you mean? Like you liked World War I? Like it's a tribute?
Totally. God's Not Dead was a breakout hit over the summer because nobody expected it to be. It was suddenly this movie shows up in the top 10. God's Not Dead. What? And people didn't really realize it's a faith-based film. It's Kevin Sorbo plays this philosophy professor who wants his students to declare that God is dead, and this one kid who's an evangelical Christian says, I'm not going to do that, and he, takes the challenge to prove that God exists, and so forth and so on. This is a very, very pandering movie. This panders completely to the persecution complex of a particular segment of Southern evangelicals, and it's great for them. I mean, if I were recommending a movie to them, I would say, screw all the summer movies, watch this, because this is your thing. As a movie, I think it's incredibly weak. It's like a genre film, right? You recommend this to the people who want to see this and who know what they're getting and who are getting what they want. But as a movie, it's not very well done. It's not very well written. It's certainly not very well directed. Although I will say, it's nice to see Kevin Sorbo do something that's not as ridiculous as what he's been doing for the better part of the last 20 years.
But you have to wonder,
Hercules and all the rest of that stuff.
You have to wonder where, if you're an actor appearing in a film like this,
yeah.
Is it necessary for you to adhere to the beliefs of the film, or can you be a for-hire actor?
You can be a for-hire actor.
And still do a film like that. I mean, not like,
Of course you can.
Okay, so he's going to have to sell his evangelical...
Sure. Well, Sorbo in this one, he gets to play the atheist. So, anyway, you know what? World War I, we are commemorating the 100th anniversary of World War I and all of its various ensuing dates and tragedies and battles and so forth. And as a result, we got a ton of World War I stuff here, most of it from BBC, but the first two are not. The Village, Series 1, is a BBC series that begins roughly around the time of World War I. And this is one of those great British period series, like Downton Abbey, like Upstairs, Downstairs, that sort of follows a group of people over a period of historical tumult. And it's really, really good. It is. It's really first rate. Well written, well directed, incredibly well acted. Probably kind of missed a lot of people over here at the time. This is back in the mid '90s, and but it's got a lot of really, really good performances in it from Juliet Stevenson, a few other names you might recognize, David Ryle. It's a really, really solid cast, and of course it all takes place primarily around this one little rural village. Again, beginning around the time of World War I. And it's pretty great. It's just solid. And then we also have The Wipers Times, which has some tremendous acting in it from, of all people, Michael Palin and Ben Chaplin. And this also is this is entirely World War I. It's set in 1916, and Ben Chaplin plays this captain who discovers a printing press in this particular part of Belgium, and decides that he's going to, create an enlisted man's newspaper to kind of boost the morale of all of his guys. And the name of it is The Wipers Times, and this is actually loosely based on actual events, and I say very, very loosely because I think it's just based on newspaper printing and listed publications at the time. But it's again really solid, really interesting, and takes a very, very novel approach to World War I. And that is from PBS. And then from BBC, we have a whole bunch of stuff that has all been out previously, but it's all World War I related, and it's worth checking out. One is 14 War Stories, which is really must-see. That is just superb stuff. My Boy Jack, starring Daniel Radcliffe as the son of Rudyard Kipling. And if you don't know that story, Rudyard Kipling's actual son, Jack, served in World War I, and I won't tell you what happened, but it's just heartbreaking and wonderful all at the same time. And surprisingly, really good performances in here by Kim Cattrall, believe it or not. This is really good. If you missed it on television or missed it on DVD the first time, definitely worth checking out. And then the story, 37 Days, the story of the final weeks before the outbreak of World War I. Really, really good. Historically very accurate. Directed by Justin Hardy, who is probably going to have a really big career one of these days. Churchill's First World War is a look back at Churchill and how he sort of became the man that he would eventually be during the course of World War I. This overlaps a lot with Gallipoli and all the various movies that they made
I
about
love Gallipoli.
Right? Gosh,
Yeah.
when is that going to be on Blu-ray?
I know.
There's one for Criterion, right? And Royal Cousins at War from the BBC, which is a two-part series that gets into all of the family entanglements that started World War I, which, if you didn't know, all the royals that were involved, they're all descendants of Queen Victoria. My mother used to say that if Queen Victoria had lived, World War I never would have happened because they were all her grandkids running all these countries. You know, Tsar Nicholas was a grandchild, and the Kaiser was a grandchild, and it's just, amazing. So...
You know what's not amazing?
What's not amazing?
Space Raiders. Now, Space Raiders...
I remember Space Raiders.
It's the worst. Now, Space Raiders came out...
I think I paid to see that.
You know what? Here's the thing. Space Raiders came out in '83.
Yeah.
It was producer Roger Corman, of course, like many producers, jumped on the whole Star Wars space opera bandwagon and started doing lots of cheapy knockoffs. And one of them was Space Raiders. This one is it's a terrible film, but it's really only nostalgic if you know sort of the context in which it was made as a Roger Corman film, as a Star Wars space opera ripoff, which is very popular at the time. What I find interesting about the film is that now the music in the film was by James Horner, because James Horner did start as a Corman guy.
Yep.
He also did Battle Beyond the Stars. But here on the back of the Blu-ray, the music is credited to Murphy Dunn. Now, I don't know who Murphy Dunn is. I know he wrote a song in the film. There's like a couple songs in the film. He wrote a song in the film, but I don't think he did the score. So I don't know why James Horner is not credited on the box with having done the score. It's Murphy Dunn. That is a little bizarre to me. But anyway, the movie's terrible. It takes place on some distant planet and whatever.
All right.
Short Eyes is an interesting film. Short Eyes is from 1977, and it's all about this place called the Tombs, which was a notorious prison facility in Manhattan. And Bruce Davidson, who's terrific, and he would eventually go on to get an Oscar nomination for Longtime Companion, and you may remember from the original X-Men film, he plays this, in real life, the Tombs, it's a facility in Manhattan where you get a lot of African American and Puerto Rican inmates. And so into this African American and Puerto Rican prison population comes this middle-aged white guy played by Bruce Davidson. So not only is he a middle-aged white guy who's kind of like a bit ostracized, he's in there for molesting a child. Now, if you're in prison, child molesters are considered the lowest of the low within the prison population because a lot of inmates were abused as children, and that's why they became criminals. So when a child molester winds up in prison, they are destroyed by the other inmates because they are considered the lowest. So everybody hates this guy, as they should, except for one prisoner who sort of takes him under his wing. And the movie's all about this.
And it's Tim Robbins.
Exactly.
Or it's Morgan Freeman.
No,
I can't remember.
It is not. It's all about Bruce Davidson is a child molester and the prisoner who sort of helps him take him under his wing. So it's an interesting little relationship film that takes place in this prison. So it's kind of it went under the radar for a long time. Scorpion is releasing it, and it's an interesting little movie. It's called Short Eyes. It's pretty intense. It's also Curtis Mayfield's in it, who also does the music, and Freddie Fender is in it.
Freddie Fender. I remember
Yes.
Freddie Fender.
Yes.
Freddie Fender's my man. Here's our Twilight Time pack for this month, and some really great stuff here. Twilight Time they just nail so many great titles. First up, and foremost of all of this, from the Columbia Library, is the Buddy Holly story. And this is germane, especially because we recently had Get On Up, the James Brown biopic, music industry biopics as old as can be. And the Buddy Holly story, one of the first of the rock era, and certainly the best. Certainly the best thing that Gary Busey ever did. He got an Oscar nomination out of this. He's terrific in the film. And then he lost his mind shortly thereafter, and now he's a crazy man. But
he's the best.
But Steve Rash also, what did he do after this? It's just amazing. This is really pretty great. And you know, the band in this thing, Charles Martin Smith is in the band.
What?
Watching this again, I was like, that's Charles Martin Smith. I totally forgot he was in this movie. And it's really fun to rediscover it again. It's just an awful lot of fun. And, La Bamba is kind of a parallel story to the Buddy Holly story, because obviously Richie Valens and Buddy Holly perished together. But really a lot of fun. This is on Blu-ray from Twilight Time, available only at screenarchives.com. Limited edition. There's only a few thousand of these been made, so get it now or forever hold your peace. The Secret of Santa Vittoria is one of those Stanley Kramer movies that just is so Stanley Kramer-y. And Mark and I will not get into our whole Stanley Kramer backstory, but you know, Stanley Kramer haunts us to this day.
His daughter haunts us to this. I saw her actually. She was at something.
Kind of everywhere.
Well, she continues to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And you know what? She's ageless because she has somehow learned how to apply makeup so prodigiously and detailed and beautifully that she has stayed about 42 years old for like 15 years.
It is remarkable. But anyway, she and his widow keep his memory alive, as do movies like this, The Secret of Santa Vittoria, which features a fantastic score by Ernest Gold, who of course did the very, very famous Exodus score for Kramer as well. And great performances here from Anthony Quinn and Verna Lisi and Hardy Kruger and a lot of great performers of the era. This is, the film has been alternately praised and maligned over the years, and I think it kind of belongs somewhere in the middle. It takes place around the end of World War II, and deals, it takes place in this winemaking village in Italy, and Anthony Quinn really, really, overacts tremendously in this thing, and I think it's a sweet, charming film. It means to, I think, pay homage a little bit to The Treasure of Sierra Madre, but sometimes I wonder. Fritz Lang directed a movie called Manhunt, which is one of those lost Fritz Lang movies that everyone always forgets exists. This was made in Hollywood in 1941, and is really a pretty amazing wartime thriller. The United States had not yet gotten involved in World War II. So you look at this with that in mind, keep that context in mind, and you realize, wow, this is kind of both an advocacy piece and a propaganda piece, but also a really terrific thriller. And it's pretty great. I won't tell you what the plot is, because the plot is almost amazingly far-fetched, and yet it totally works. So I highly recommend this as a wartime thriller, a noirish wartime thriller, Manhunt. Fritz Lang, and an amazing performance by Walter Pidgeon, the great Walter Pidgeon. Wrapping out the Twilight Time, there's a couple of Ken Loach films here, Riff Raff and Raining Stones, also on Blu-ray. They are together, it's one disc, and they've been out before on Blu-ray or on DVD.
You didn't say God bless you. I just
I'm
sneezed.
not going to. I know. You can sneeze more. I'm still not going to say God bless you.
You're mean.
And these are, like all Ken Loach films from this era. It's all about the performances. And there's some just amazing young actors who really, really strut their stuff in here. And all of them have gone on to become a really, really big deal. So early Ken Loach in Riff Raff and Raining Stones. And then lastly, Follow That Dream. You know who's in Follow That Dream?
Oh,
Elvis.
Elvis.
I like Elvis movies. This is from 1962, the same year as Lawrence of Arabia, and even though a lot of people were watching Lawrence of Arabia, a lot of other people were watching Follow That Dream, and they were dancing to Elvis, and it doesn't really matter what it's about because it's Elvis. So it's on Blu-ray, and it's Elvis, and he sings, and he's awesome.
Wade, one movie we forgot to mention when we were talking about Roger Corman is the absolutely horrible 1982 What the F, Sorceress. Now, Sorceress...
I think I paid to see that, too. I think I paid based on, like, the Frank Frazetta-ish artwork that they used to sell it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's retained in the Blu-ray cover art, where you have the snake who is strategically
the lion
slithering her way between the woman's legs.
Yeah, the lion with the bat wings and.
This movie starred a pair of twins, Lee and Lynette Harris, who would wind up becoming Playboy Playmates, and they play. Yeah, the funny thing is that there's no sorceress in the film. The film doesn't have a sorceress in it. It's got Goat Boy, and it's got Pando, and it's got the evil wizard Trigon, but there's no sorceress in it. So it's just one of those sorts of crazy, Dungeons and Dragony fantasy films, of the, like Lady Hawk or around. It was released around the Conan the Barbarian time.
Yeah,
kind of like a little like Barbarella, but way less funny or self-knowing than Barbarella. This is just one of a series of fantasy films that just really trafficked in women wearing, chainmail bikinis and running around with swords. And the thing with the movie is that it's just terrible. There's really nothing good about this film. The dialogue is terrible. It's really poorly shot. It's completely ridiculous. The costumes are bad. It looks like it was shot for television. So I would recommend it. I would recommend Sorceress only if you love really, really bad movies and they make you laugh.
They do.
Bad movies make you laugh?
They do. Okay, let me rock out on a handful of Kino Lorber Studio Classic releases now from Kino Lorber. This is a new line from Kino Lorber, and they're clearly competing with Twilight Time and Olive in trying to raid these libraries and get some really good kind of unheralded titles out there. One of them is The Children's Hour, which is based on a Lillian Hellman play. I've never seen the play. I've only ever seen the movie. And I've forgotten what a really, really slick movie this is. This is really just a joy to watch, because where else are you going to get Shirley MacLaine and Audrey Hepburn together with the late James Garner?
Lots of places.
The Children's Hour.
Happens all the time.
Fantastic. Produced and directed by William Wyler, the great William Wyler from the Lillian Hellman play, she, of course, was adapted here by John Michael Hayes, who does a fantastic job. Great score by Alex North. And it's just really, really, it's just great performance across the board. I mean, you realize how great just absolutely great actress chemistry. The story, takes place in this girls' school, this private girls' school, but it's just William Wyler, man. The guy just had a way of staging actors and making everything just fire on all cylinders. Charles Bronson in one of his cheesy action epics, post-Death Wish. This one is Mr. Majestyk. Majestyk with a Y.
I remember that.
Remember that? Gosh,
yeah.
Richard Fleischer directed this. And like the Children's Hour, this is from the Mirisch Company, the Mirisch brothers, who of course did all the great Billy Wilder films. So this is another one of their UA productions. Richard Fleischer was pretty much kind of on the. He was not at his best in 1974, shall we say? But Charles Bronson with a gun, kicking butt. Why not? It's a genre unto itself. And another Charles Bronson film that's a little bit better is Breakheart Pass. This is a little more legit. This is based on the Alistair MacLean. Was there a book? I think this was a book, right? Alistair MacLean wrote it, but I think he wrote it based on a book. It's like his own book, I think. I've never read any Alistair MacLean, so I wouldn't know for sure. But anyway, when you put Charles Bronson into a Western environment, somehow he feels more legit.
It feels right.
It just feels right. It really does. Ben Johnson and Richard Crenna and Charles Durning do a great job.
Yay, Charles Durning. He's
the
cool.
Wonderful Jill Ireland, who of course was married at the time to Charles Bronson, also always lovely in these movies. And then we have The Unforgiven with Burt Lancaster and again Audrey Hepburn. The Unforgiven, not to be confused with Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. This is The Unforgiven. Is a fantastic.
God bless you, Mark.
Bless you, Mark. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
Gesundheit.
I'm Jewish. I don't like the German Gesundheit.
My
father used to say
I'll find
that.
a Yiddish equivalent.
My father, when my father would sneeze, I would say Gesundheit. Because whatever, you say Gesundheit. And he wouldn't like that because that was German, and German, killed Jews.
Okay.
Swear to God.
All right.
He would not want me to say. And what's funny is that my father was like an atheist, so I really couldn't say God bless you either.
Okay.
So I didn't know what to say when my father sneezed.
Okay. You could say the French.
What is it?
A tes souhait.
A tes souhait?
It
Lame.
doesn't sound right. I know.
No.
Anyway, this is John Huston who did The Unforgiven, one of his many just kind of workman-like films. Not one of his very, very best, but it's solid and better than most movies today. I'll say that. So, and always nice to see Audie Murphy show up in any movie, along with John Saxon and a lot of other great people. So, Burt Lancaster and Audrey Hepburn just knocking out doing a little bit of the old Western. Frontier cowboys and Indians thing here. Lillian Gish is in this too, by the way. Almost unrecognizable in some ways, and a great score by Dmitri Tiomkin, which is one of the reasons that Twilight Time does these things, because the scores are just so amazing.
We have 3 from Scream Factory. Now, of course, we love Shout Factory, and Scream Factory is their kind of horror genre-y arm. First, we have Leviathan. Now, Leviathan stars Peter Weller, and I have to say that the only reason why I care about Leviathan is because, I don't. It's sort of like an Abyss sort of a film, but it's like way lame version of the Abyss is Leviathan, where you have this crew, and Peter Weller's there, Richard Crenn is there, Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters is there, and Daniel Stern from Home Alone is there, and they go to the ocean floor, and they discover a big secret. Now, this film is directed by George Cosmatos.
Yeah.
Now, here's why I love him.
George Pan Cosmatos.
Now, here's why I love him. Now, this has nothing to do with Leviathan. I'm going to go off on a tangent, Wade. George directed one of my most hilarious bad movies ever.
Leviathan came out a few weeks before The Abyss.
I'd rather watch The Abyss.
Yeah.
There's some heavy stuff
There
in
were 3 movies about undersea monster-y things that happened all in the same summer. I remember there was Leviathan, and then there was The Abyss, and then there was another one in there, Deep Sea 7, Deep 6. What was that thing called?
I remember that.
Remember that?
I forgot the name of it.
That was the worst one.
Okay.
Anyway, go on. You like Cosmatos.
George Cosmatos, I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
He directed one of my favorite terrible movies ever. I know what you think. Well, which one could it be, you're thinking? He directed Cobra.
Oh, he did, didn't he?
I love Cobra.
Oh,
Cobra had the... Okay, now here's what you're thinking. I know Wade and I are about to geek out. Now, the reason why we love Cobra, which is a Stallone film...
It was Stallone trying to find another franchise. He was like, no more Rocky, no more Rambo. It was Cobra was going to be the new guy.
Yes, he was like the super-duper cop, like the urban super incredible cop. So, okay... The line that I love from Cobra is not I'm the disease, you're the disease, and I'm the cure. Everybody knows you're the disease and I'm the cure, which became like this buzzword. Like you go blank is the disease and blank is the cure, become this catch-all phrase throughout the 80s.
Sure.
No. Here's the best part. This is the part I love in Cobra. So in the beginning of the film, somebody's robbing a supermarket.
Yes.
It's like the seizure. This one guy is robbing a supermarket. I remember the guy's badass. He's going to rob this. He's got a gun. He's got a bomb. He's going to rob the supermarket. And of course, Cobra, he's chomping on his toothpick or his match, whatever he would suck on, like a tough guy. He has black glasses, his black shirt. Cobra. He's Cobra. So he's stalking the supermarket, and the bad guy who's taking siege to the supermarket goes, I got a bomb. I'm going to blow up this supermarket. And then Stallone looks like in that sideways super dramatic glance. He goes, go ahead. I don't shop here. Yeah! He was Cobra. I love that movie.
That's awesome.
That's just the best, worst movie ever.
It was a lot of fun. It's a guilty pleasure.
No, that's Cobra. Of course, it's nothing to do with Leviathan, but that's Cobra. Anyway, we also have from Scream Factory, Without Warning. Now, Without Warning is another bad film. It's about some of these films, look, we love Shout Factory and Scream Factory. Sometimes they pluck these things out and try to kind of boost it up a little bit in the packaging, but really the films aren't that great. This is from 1980. It does have a very good cast. It's got Martin Landau, early David Caruso, Jack Palance for some reason. Neville Brand is in there. And it's about these kids, and they go to a lake, and while at the lake, they discover this extraterrestrial who sucks the blood as their victim. And this alien is so stupid looking. This alien reminds me of... Do you remember the episode of Star Trek with This Is Tranya?
Oh,
remember that?
Corbomite maneuver.
Yes. Do you remember how bad that... Now, in the episode, the alien was supposed to look bad because he was a front for Ron Howard's brother.
Yes, exactly.
In this film, Without Warning, it's just that bad. So the alien in Without Warning looks as bad as that alien looked.
But Clint Howard, as an adult, is scarier than any alien.
I know, it really is true.
Yeah.
Anyway, also from Shout Factory or Scream Factory is Deadly Eyes. Deadly Eyes, directed by Robert Klaus, who also directed Enter the Dragon. This is Also not very good. It's about this grain is contaminated with steroids, and so these huge, large black mice or rats start eating people in Toronto. Really silly stuff. Again, we're talking the 80s, folks, so there's a lot of weird, low-budget horror stuff that came out during that time. Not all of it Corman. Some of the stuff is pretty nostalgic if you remember those times, but they're really not very good movies. Anyway, there you go. So it's Deadly Eyes Without Warning and Leviathan from the good folks at Scream Factory.
Got 3 here from WarnerArchive.com, the Warner Archive collection. 2 of them are middling to okay. One of them is great. The middling to okay ones are both noirs. One is The Hunted, which is just a kind of a straightforward B noir from the era. I had never seen this, and there's nothing particularly bad or nothing particularly remarkable about it. It's just solid, some very good second-tier actors, and this was made for Monogram in the 1940s. So it's kind of an escapist, escapist noir from the World War II era. Perfectly acceptable. Pierre Watkin, Larry Blake, and Russell Hicks star in it, along with Preston Foster. And then the other one that is a little bit more enjoyable is Stage Struck, which is this. It kind of takes the backstage drama of, I'm a young actress and I'm going to make it on the stage, and it combines it with a murder mystery and noir and a lot of caper misdirection. And it ultimately doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense, but it's enjoyable to watch. It's perfectly enjoyable. This was also a Monogram film, and Kane Richmond, great performance. Audrey Long, Conrad Nagel. These are people who were very, very familiar to audiences of the day in these kinds of films. The one that you got to check out is Trial. Trial is excellent. It is a superb film. Glenn Ford, Dorothy McGuire, Arthur Kennedy. It's a great cast, fantastic cast. And this was directed by Mark Robson, who was one of the legendary directors of the day, one of the legendary studio directors. I mean, tons of great movies to his career. Glenn Ford, kind of an early civil rights figure in this. And this is basically a courtroom drama. It takes place right after World War II. And it's about helping this young Latino kid, defending him after he's been accused of killing this young white girl. And you could say it's a little bit of a To Kill a Mockingbird vibe going on, but it's very, very different, and it's addressing a very different dynamic, and it gets into blacklisting and a lot of these other issues of the day, and it's really surprisingly sharp, and it's kind of vanished from people's top 10 lists and of the era, but man, it's really, really sharp. So Trial, not to be confused with The Trial, with Glenn Ford, directed by Mark Robson, really good movie. And Mark, let's go out with one more criterion.
Yay!
This is the English language criterion of the week. Love Streams, John Cassavetes and Jenna Rollins.
Now, this is not on the Cassavetes box set.
Not in the Cassavetes box set. I'm not quite sure why. I assume that it's probably a licensing issue, because this was produced by someone who just died. Not Robin Williams.
Lauren Bacall.
Not Lauren Bacall. Who else just died? We had another obituary recently. Let's put it this way. People did not remember him fondly. That
guy from Game of Thrones who suddenly died and then they're not going to recast him.
No, this would be Menachem Golan.
Oh, this is back when Golan was trying to get legit.
They were trying to get legit. This is Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus of Canon Films. They were trying to get legit, and they decided to do a Cassavetes film, which, in a certain sense, you have to say, that's really admirable. And at the same time, you have to say, what the hell were they thinking?
Well, why not? Look, someone's got to bankroll those films.
Sure, but if you're at the same time, you're trying to go legit. Cassavetes films were never mainstream. They were admired. They were beloved by a certain art film crowd. But if you're Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus, and you've got Canon Films, and you're known for making a lot of Chuck Norris movies and some, the ninja movies and all that crap, and the American ninja movies and all that junk, and you're a schlockmeister, and you want to suddenly say, we are legit. If you're Harvey and Bob and you're doing that, yes, you're going to be doing Shakespeare in Love and The English Patient and so forth. The Cassavetes film is not going to get it done. Now, that said, Love Streams is a lovely movie. It just didn't get it done for them. None of the other films that they did got it done. But a lot of the usual characters show up in this. Seymour Cassel is fantastic. By the way, Seymour Cassel stars in The Dependables.
I have seen that.
seen that?
I saw the poster.
That's great. That's fantastic.
You love that.
I have to watch it. I got to get a hold of that somehow. I don't even know who's distributing that. I just saw that and I was like, we got to get a hold of that. Anyway, but this is great, and especially great here is John Cassavetes, the man and his work from 1984, the hour-long documentary that's all about the making of the film, which is first rate. So I mean, it is a really, really good Cassavetes film. It's a throwback to his early films, and it's unfortunately very somewhat kind of forgotten. So from 1984, Love Streams, the John Cassavetes film on Criterion. Thank you, Criterion. Once again, a dual format Blu-ray and DVD edition as they are about to phase the format out. And with that, Mark, we are done.
It's fine.
We didn't talk about Lauren Bacall, so let's go out on Lauren Bacall. I mean, Lauren Bacall was, she was. We don't sort of need to recommend any of her best films because it's not like Robin Williams. It's not like she was gone before her time. We've kind of been expecting that one for a while.
Although she did do an episode of Family Guy. Very surprised about that.
I didn't know that.
Yes, she did recently. All I'll say is that you realize, and these kids today with their rock music, you realize that when Lauren Bacall was 19,
yes,
Humphrey Bogart was 25 years older than her.
Yes.
They were shacking up.
Yep.
Bogey was 44. She was 19. Good for Bogey. I'm jealous of Bogey.
All right.